Bergen Community College presents Bergen Bulldog Radio on FiOS Channel 26. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Bergen Community College.
Welcome to Bergen Bulldog Radio, the podcast show, here on FiOS Channel 26 for the week of April 24th, 2025. I'm your host, Jordan Burrell. The Bergen Bulldog Podcasting Show is a weekly compilation produced by the students of the podcasting class on the Paramus campus of Bergen Community College. Each week we will feature several podcasts created and provided by Bulldog Radio students. The topics vary, and we do hope you find them informative and entertaining. This week's program features part one of the final podcast episodes for the spring 2025 semester here at Bergen Community College. Keys to Homeownership, How Wrestling Evolved, and Giggles and Glow Girls. So let's get on with the show.
Hi, and welcome to Keys to Homeownership. My name is Brenda Belilla, and welcome back to my new episode. Okay, so today we're going to have a mix of things to talk about. Homes, of course, homes and how to get there, which we did in our previous episode. But this episode, I want to dedicate it to many friends and family that maybe feel a little lost on how am I going to be able to afford a house in this economy, or my new millenniums where they're like, well, I finished school, I graduated, but there's no jobs, or everything is so expensive, or how can I afford to even move out of my mom's house because everything is so pricey. And I wanted to share a little things or a couple of things that could open up ideas and help you unstuck yourself. So here we go. Well, let's begin with finance. Of course, we need a job in order for us to move, and we need money in order for us to be independent, okay? And I've sold homes to people that worked doing Uber. I've sold home to people that their money comes from being either Uber Eats or taxi drivers. Of course, the amount of hours that they will have to work is very different from someone who works a 9 to 5 and have a secure check. But everything is possible. Sometimes we want to have a lifestyle of, I want to have my own place, but how can I do it? Or I want to move across town, but I can't afford it because everything is so expensive. And instead, we start thinking on how can we get it, but we don't think on how can I multiply my money, or what do I have, what do I pay, or what's my monthly expenses that I can get rid of for now that can make me or help me save to get closer to my goals. And I'll give you an example. For example, my son, which is moving pretty soon out of state, he's all set, he's gonna finish school, and he's like, hey mom, okay, I'm gonna move, but everything is so expensive. So when I ask what's expensive for you, of course he wants a mansion for $200. That's not gonna happen. But if you're saying, if I make $1,000 a week, or maybe you just make $500, whatever job you get, make sure that you are not only, the first thing is to pay yourself first. You save, rain or shine, save that 10% as a minimum of any money that comes in your way. Regardless of what happens, regardless if you have to pay anything, pay yourself first. Because if you don't pay yourself first, tomorrow when you be in trouble, you're not going to have nobody to help you. And it's hard to knock on a door or say, hey friend, can you lend me something, when you could just literally go back to your emergency fund, or I don't call it emergency fund because I don't like the negative, right? I call it my surprise moments, right? Or surprise box. So go back to your savings and say, hey, you know what? I have this covered because I've spent months taking out 10%. Hey, I had $1, I took out 10 cents. I had $100, I took out $10. If you make it a habit today, tomorrow it'll be so much easy. When you have a $10,000, it'll be easier for you to take out that 10%. But it starts with little now, right? Now, when you get a job, if you're making whatever you're making, just take. After taking out, you save first, pay yourself first, then you resolve anything else you need to resolve. Because, for example, if you make $500, but you go ahead and spend $501, you're going to be out of debt, right? If you make 500 in a week and you save yourself the 10%, now no matter what happens, you will pay whatever you have left, right? So if you have more month than paycheck, that's a debit. And what I mean by that is, if you make, and I'm just using $500, it could be $100 babysitting a week. How can you, it's just a number. So let's say if you have $500 and you're going to save that 10% first, that's $50. Put it on the side. Now you have $450 to work on. So out of that $450, you have gas if you have a car, or you have bus or train fares if you don't drive, right? You have, I'm pretty sure you have Netflix. Everybody has Netflix nowadays, right? And other stuff. Now, what are of those things after paying yourself that you really don't need, right? Temporarily. So it's like you're sacrificing today, so tomorrow you won't have to do it. So you're sacrificing temporarily so you can live life permanently. If that makes sense. You're hurting for a little while so you can spend the rest of your life living like no one else, right? Having those joyful moments. And it all starts with little habits today. Your small habits today will create your future tomorrow, right? So, for example, whatever you make, if you're not making anything, you're like, okay, Brenda, how about if I don't have a job? Well, guess you're going to start looking for a job. It may sound hard, but don't focus on the obstacle, okay? Sometimes doors don't open right now because there's a better one that is waiting for you. But if you don't keep seeking for those doors, you're not going to find out what door is waiting for you, right? So once you start, maybe you start at a job that you don't like, go for it. You're just gaining experience, making $1, right? So you graduated out of college to be, to work in TVs or at radio, or you were going to become a teacher or an architect, but you haven't found a job. Go check down, PetSmart or whatever stores there's out there. You have to connect with people. If you want to be, let's say, an artist, or if you want to be an architect, or if you want to be even a barber, if you want to be a barber, don't hang out where they're teaching how to cook. You got to hang out where they're doing haircuts, right? Because who you surround yourself also matter. So if I want a job at the field that I'm at, for example, I'm a realtor now, but I always dreamed to be an investor. I am one today, but I follow the people that were already in the world, already doing what I wanted to do. And I didn't start as a realtor. I was a teacher before. And before I was a teacher, I worked at the airport. And all of that pushed me to my path today. So if you are in a career or you want to go seek a career that you just graduated, start somewhere or go to the places where most likely people that are in that field are already working, and connect with them. Maybe you want to offer free hours. Maybe you want to say, hey, I would like to, I'm willing to help out here just for experience. And believe me, it's going to connect you to someone that is going to pull you in or open more doors for you. Okay. Now we still need to make money, right? Because we want to make a living and we still want to move out. If you're living with your parents and you're well in your household, don't rush it. Save as much as you can. So when you do save, then you could go ahead and buy your own investment, because if you buy your own property and you have a house for yourself, but you don't really need a house, you can rent the rooms, right? Now you have somebody else paying it for you. For example, if you have 5 houses that are making you $2,000 extra every month, here you are making $10,000 a month without having to work. And it sounds like a big number, but it feels good every 1 to the 5th of the month that you have that bank account growing without you sweating, right? And how we're going to get there, it starts with one job. Start in one job. Whatever you make, don't make more debts because you're making more money. And that's what a lot of people do, especially young people. Oh, I have a job. I work at Applebee's, or I work, fixing shoes. Whatever it may be, is still something that is giving you money. Pay yourself first that 10%. And then the rest, make a budget. How much is your phone bill? If your phone bill is $150, why don't you go fish around to a company that you pay $100? Now you're saving $50 more, right? You have Netflix, Hulu, and all these jazz. Why so many? Use one. right? Because you shouldn't spend so much time watching TV anyways. You should be spending the rest of your time in implementing how you could be 1% better. So decrease your monthly debt. What's necessary, or what is a must and what is a want? Check those two difference, right? So, and it sounds easier. It is easy. It's just, it requires work. It requires you to start making a habit. It's consistency, because motivation is temporary. I can motivate you right now to say, hey, you got this, you can do it, go get a job and go kill it. However, when you get tired and you're like, Brenda, my back hurts, or I have a headache, there goes your motivation. But if the next day you get up and you do it again, guess what? That's consistency. Consistency will always win. And that's what you have to focus on. So for my new millenniums and, my young friends, you don't know where to start. If you have a job, save the 10% and start saving, right? Don't go run before you can walk. If you don't have a job, then that's where you have to start. Get anything. It may not be your $1 million job, but it's going to connect you to other places, It's like there's a saying also, who you hang around with matters. If you hang around with a barber long enough, sooner or later you're going to get a haircut. So who you're around with matters. Choose wisely who you're going to spend most of your time with. Because if you're with someone who has no inspiration, if you're hanging out with someone that really don't care and just want to do nothing, you're not going to feel motivated, or you're not going to have any passion to go ahead and continue on your own. You're going to get comfortable. And comfortable is the enemy of success. Okay? So if you have a job, or you found a job, or you're looking for a job, go get it. Once you have your job, write a goal. Because if you have a dream, it will always be a dream if you don't write it down. Once you write it down, now you have a goal. Right? When you go to your friend's house and you don't know the address, the first thing you do, you put it on a GPS. Now the GPS calculate the route for you, and it will tell you you're going to be there in X amount of time, and these are the steps that you need, the road that you need to take in order for you to make it there. So the same thing with our life. Okay, I want to move out of my parents' house. I have a job. I'm not making too much. Okay, that's fine. What can you do extra? Can you grab extra hours? Can you work? It requires work, but if you do it strong enough and consistently, it's only going to be temporary. And yes, you're going to be tired, but guess what? Meanwhile, you're working in your dreams. Your friends are probably working and having fun and going to the beach and doing all the fun stuff. But when they're ready to go back into their goals, you're already past them. You're already ahead of the game. So that's why I said choose your friends wisely. If you're ready, you got a job. Now you're like, okay, how much do I need in order for me to move? If you're one person, you don't need a whole lot. If you're going to rent, you need a month rent, a month and a half of deposit, right? And if you work with a realtor, you obviously will need 1 month of rent. That's the realtor fee. It's not a lot. It's just a number. When you think everything is expensive, like I know things are expensive, but it's expensive to people that can't afford it. Because if you will have the money, for you, nothing. Okay, this water costs $6. Okay, I'm going to buy it. It doesn't affect you. Remember, and I'm going to put this excuse. When you go to a baseball game, or you go to the Prudential Center, which is in Newark, or if you go to these places, water costs $6. Sometimes even $8, right? But if you go to a grocery or bodega, how they call it in Spanish, to downtown or whatever town you're in, it's going to cost you $1.50. The water is still the same. It's still the same brand. The only difference is sold in a different location. So the value of that water is not the taste of the water, but where the water is. That's where the value comes. The same thing with us, right? We sometimes feel things are so expensive, but that's because we don't have the money. If you had the money in your account, it's like, okay, it's just here. Let me pay for it. Now, how can I get from level 0 to 100? Or how can I just starts with a goal. Write it down. What is it that you want? And give yourself a deadline. Give yourself a deadline. I want to accomplish this by this amount. I want to move out. I just finished school. I can't stand ABC. This is my surroundings or where I'm living. If you want to do that, you can. Just get started with a goal. Have a saving, If you are making some money, and you can afford to save more than 10%, start with that, right? Once you have enough money, enough funds to move on to the next level, then once you have this place of yours, think of what's going to do for you if I get my apartment. How is that going to feel when I have my own place and I don't need to be under nobody else's rules, right? That your dream should be stronger. And if it scares you, that means it's good. If your dream does not scare you, it's not big enough, right? So just keep pushing. How can I get started today? Get a job. You don't have a job? Keep looking, okay? If you go around the same corners thinking you're going to get a different answer, that's just insanity. So get out of the box. Think out of the box, all right? If you have to get uncomfortable, go get uncomfortable. Go drink a coffee somewhere else. Go to another Starbucks. I don't know. Make a friend. But you have to get out of your comfort zone, because sometimes we tend to do the same thing every day thinking we're going to get a different result, and it doesn't work that way. And once you get started, once you start saving, then think about, well, how can I make $1 today? What can I do today that I can make $1? Maybe it's selling something on Amazon. Maybe, I don't know, if I have things in my house like my video games that I don't use, maybe I put it on Marketplace. You know, if I made $5 out of that, how can I multiply that? I don't know, maybe let me go buy that game in TJ Maxx or that shirt in TJ Maxx and resell it in Marketplace for $50. There's tons of ideas for you to be creative and make more money. Maybe I do some babysitting. Maybe I do some coaching, or maybe I do some tutoring. You know how many parents out there put on Facebook website that they need someone to help their child with math or reading, and they're like 5? You know what I mean? We're college students. So think about the ways you can make money. What inspires you? What you're good at? Are you good at numbers? Teach some math. Are you good at another language? Teach a course. You know, there's so many courses out there on Google that you could buy them for $10. I'm pretty sure that was an idea of someone. What can you do that you can repeat it 10 times to make that money? And once you do it 10 times, do it another 10 times. And once you do it that other 10 times, do it another 10 times. And watch how far you can go and how you're going to be blown away, right? So that's how you can start getting unstuck. Just starts with a goal, write it down, and then go target it, you know? Save as much as you can. There's temptations, you know? Maybe you want to go with the boys or with the girls because you're tired, and you're going to give yourself 100 excuses on why you need to go to that party that you can obviously not afford, right? Because now you have to buy something cute. Is that you're going to have a temporary pleasure, right? And that's going to go away. Now you're back 3 steps backwards because you spend money on something you didn't need to. So check on your habits. What do you spend on that you shouldn't? What is more important to you? You know, what can I do today? So if you graduated already and you want to go start on your journey, how much money do you have in your bank account? If it's a 0, it's okay. We all start from nothing. You know, if you got something and you destroyed it because of your habits, it's okay. We learn from our mistakes. What's not okay is for you to do nothing about it. What's not okay for you to get comfortable in giving yourself excuses on why you can't do it, right? I do not like going to the gym, but I wake up at 5:30 every morning and make sure I don't even talk to myself so I don't convince myself out of going to the gym. But I do it, and I'm a parent, and I'm also a business owner, and I'm also, you know, a mom, and many other things. But I have to love myself enough to love others. Self-care is not being selfish. It's giving yourself self-love. So it starts with you. You're the only one responsible of happiness. Nobody is here to make you happy. You're responsible to make yourself happy. And if you're happy, then you can share some of the happiness with other people. You cannot let others take your joy away. If people don't believe in you, that's their problem. You know, now it is your fault if you want to accept it. And it's like me. When I growing up, I didn't have many people believing in what I wanted to do because I used to love music. So they saw that music was like nothing. And I loved to dance, but they didn't believe on what I wanted to do because I loved dancing. So that was their lens. If I would have allowed that to stick on me, then today I wouldn't be who I am today. And the same thing with you. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how you look, if you're big, small. It doesn't matter. You are unique. There's no others like you. And believe me, there is no other like you. But you can leave a mark in many people's heart, and it starts with you. So let's get started, get it together. If I could do it, you can do it. And you can do more than what you think of, and it sounds confusing. Where do I start? Start writing. Write it down. We all tend to forget what we want. Write down. You want to be a millionaire? Okay, write $1 million. How am I going to get to that 1 million? It starts with $1, right? So start with that $1. How can I multiply that $1? Do it again. If I got a job, it feels so good to put some. Once you start saving it on the side, then you're going to see you're going to have so much money. Just start talking to people that can show you how to multiply. Read the right books. And if you don't like reading, there's audiobooks. There's no excuses, right? You can only decide what's heavier for you, excuses or results. The choice is yours. Some people focus on the problem, not on the solution. And an example is, if I give you a vase with a beautiful flower, but this vase or vase, is on a table and it has dust, what are you going to focus on? Are you going to focus on the dust? Or are you going to focus on the nice vase with the flowers? So the choice is yours. Okay, so let's get unstuck. If you don't have that job, go find one. It may not be your dream job, but think about what is your goal, where you want to be, and start with that job that is going to connect you to the next one. And as hard as if you think it's hard, guess what? It is hard. But if you think it's easy, guess what? It is easy. It's up to you what you want to tell yourself. You want to believe it's hard? Go. You want to believe it's easy? Go. But I promise you, whatever you choose, you're right. So I would choose positive because that's what's going to get me further, right? Once you get that job, if you find an apartment that makes you happy, and if you don't want to pay it on your own, get a roommate. You're going to have the whole apartment. You're going to rent that one room. And that one room will help you now learn how to manage a home, the bills you have to pay. If you really, really want to move out now and you can't afford to buy a home, you don't need to buy a home to be rich. A lot of people don't like buying. They buy, but they don't live in their own properties. They rather rent and not worry about anything else, right? But if you want to go out, because you're a student or you just you don't know where you want to be. Maybe in 2 years you want to go out of the country or out of the state, and that's why you don't want to own anything. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. But you got to live today because tomorrow is not guaranteed. So while you're making progress in being successful, give yourself a pat in the back and remind yourself, wow, I did it. Today is a new day. Today is a great day. So let me see what I can do different today that I didn't do yesterday, and get closer to your goal, right? And once you do that, you're going to make it a habit, and you won't let nobody take your joy away because you're the only one that have that power, right? Just learn how to be with yourself. Write it down. If you want to rent, rent. And then even if you rent, you remember when you rent an apartment, sometimes you have to pay your own all utilities. Some apartments includes the utilities. So you got to find something that is good for you, right? Something that you can afford, whether it rain or shine. You have to have you can say it an emergency fund or a surprises fund that could cover you 6 months. That if you lose your job, you know that you will be secure for 6 months. And that's what the saving is for, right? It's harder when you have nothing, but it only gets easier when you get started because it becomes a habit. That $1 eventually is going to be 1,000 that you started saving. That 1,000 eventually is going to be 10,000. And it becomes such a habit that you won't be scared of not having money. You're not going to be worried about things being high or lows because now you made it a habit to learn how to multiply. Now you made it a habit. It's what's important to you. We don't get everything for free. That's why we have to make sure that we have the right resource or the right tools that can help us double our finance. And educating ourselves, in many occasions, the resources are there. The libraries, all these books are free. If you don't want to do the job, then you don't want to be successful. Anything requires putting effort. Everything requires you to work towards it. It does not come free. Whatever comes free, it goes free. It goes easily. Whatever you got easily, because you don't know what it takes to have it, it will go easily. But if you master to get it yourself and get it together, and if you're in a dark place right now and you're like, I don't want to be here. So you think about it, meditate and say, how do I feel right now? I'm living with mom and dad or a friend or a cousin or at a stranger's house, and I'm not happy here. Then think, what can I do that is going to get me closer? Have that goal written and then make a plan and go after it, because you can do it. So I hope this was enough. You can always reach out to me if you want to have just a chat. Yeah, I could be your friend without a choice. Again, my name is Brenda Balilla. You can find me on Instagram. I'm Brenda Balilla. And if you want to email me and share your story, I will be more than happy to read them. My email is BELILLAGROUP.com, which is Brenda@BalillaGroup.com. Stay safe and thank you for listening.
You are listening to Bergen Bulldog Radio, the podcast show, here on Files Channel 26. And now back to the show. Hello everybody and welcome back to How Wrestling Evolved. I'm your host Jordan Burrell, and today I'm joined back here with Jake.
Hey, what's going on everybody? Thank you for having me on again, Jordan.
No problem, Jake. So last time we both got a little bit sick, so we couldn't do what I wanted to do. So I ended up talking about the history of WrestleMania. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. But today we're going to be talking about what makes wrestling wrestling, Jake. What do you think makes wrestling wrestling?
That's kind of a loaded question, isn't it? Well, I would say what makes wrestling wrestling is probably the action, the storytelling, the pageantry, in a way, of it. I think that's really what makes wrestling wrestling.
Well, you answered correctly, because today we're going to be talking about the storylines and matches of wrestling.
Very good. There's a lot of those. There's been a lot of storylines and matches in wrestling, I'll have you know.
And we'll be talking about the ones that we think are the most impactful and our favorite ones too.
Okay.
So we started with the 1980s. The first storyline that I think of, there's two storylines I think of when I think of the 1980s wrestling. I think of Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant, and Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage when the Mega Powers exploded.
Yeah, I can most certainly agree with those two. Like those are what kind of came to mind immediately for me. So yeah, I'm in on that.
So let's talk about those first.
Sure.
So we'll talk about the first one, which was Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant, which took place at WrestleMania 3. I think that WrestleMania still has the highest selling attendance, or like the most people in the crowd ever. I think there was like 93,000 in there.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to count it, because now obviously we have 2-night WrestleManias, so if you combine the two gates, it's like, oh, well, there's 100 and they just said 120 something thousand people for this past WrestleMania, probably the one last year too, but that's one night. So I know it's been disputed a lot whether that number is true from WrestleMania 3, but it's pretty impressive regardless.
Realistically, it's probably more around like 83,000, but you gotta inflate the numbers.
I mean, there was definitely the room in the Pontiac Silverdome, I would think.
Oh yeah,
for that.
But let's get to the storyline. So the storyline here was one of jealousy. I think this is the best way to describe this feud. Where Hulk Hogan, he was WWF champion for 5 years, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I mean, gosh, you gotta think it was definitely around that time period. Yeah, something like that, because what he still has a longer reign than Roman Reigns, doesn't he? So yeah, I think you're right. So
I think it was around 5 years, and he got this big trophy. Andre the Giant was undefeated for however long he said he was. He wasn't really undefeated, but why let that ruin a good storyline?
You can never let it ruin a good storyline.
So because no one was really going to check back then anyway.
This is true.
They both got trophies, but Hulk Hogan got a bigger trophy than Andre the Giant, and that made Andre jealous.
That's so silly.
It's silly looking back, but back then it must have been like, wow, because Andre the Giant was always known as a good guy. He was always, a larger-than-life figure. He was always known as a babyface, a hero. And then Bobby the Brain Heenan got into his head. For those of you who don't know who that is, he's one of the villains. At the time, he was one of the villain managers. I guess that's the best way to describe him.
Yeah,
he managed all the
he had a family, kind of like how Paul Heyman has his Paul Heyman guys. Heenan had the Heenan family.
Yeah, so basically he managed all the villains, and he got into Andre's head, and then Andre ripped the cross off Hulk Hogan. I
My
think one of the
goodness.
most iconic moments of the 80s where he grabbed Hulk Hogan and started ripping his shirt off and ripped the cross off and threw it on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, and then you got to think about, Hogan and Andre. There's one particular moment, 1987, February, the Piper's Pit with Hogan and Andre the Giant. That's really where it all happened. That's where it all broke down. And honestly, you can go back and you can watch that promo when he rips that shirt off. Hogan's basically in tears. Like, how could Andre do this to me?
I still get chills watching it. It's such a good moment.
You know what? It really is. And, say what you will about Hulk Hogan now, but in that moment, it's just, you had the beloved American hero, and you had the guy that was larger than life. And, they were together. It was awesome. People loved it. But then, for Andre to do that, and that's in that moment when you begin to realize, yeah, Andre is a gigantic man, and he's a little scary.
He's 7 foot something and 500 pounds.
He's making Hulk Hogan, who is a gigantic guy, look small. And it's like, okay, I'm a little worried now.
Yeah. Am I? Okay, yeah, you're good. But the match itself, let's get to the match now, because it also involves the match. The match itself, on rewatch, isn't really all that exciting, to be honest. It's very 80s style wrestling.
Yeah.
It's pretty boring, and that's mainly due to Andre's disability at the time, where he was in such pain constantly because of how big
poor
he
back.
was.
Yeah.
It was actually a miracle he was able to go out there, to be honest. I don't know if you heard about it, Jake, but he got drunk. Like, he had like 12 bottles of wine, and he shoved the back brace in there.
Andre had to get drunk most of the time before his matches for him to not, collapse it on himself.
Yeah, it was very sad. But the match itself just wasn't that exciting. It wasn't that good. But there's the one moment that will always withstand the test of time. Is when he body slammed Andre the Giant, where Hulk Hogan lifted up all 535 pounds of him and slammed him on the ground.
And look, by the way, let's not get it too twisted here. Okay, that is not the first time somebody body slammed Andre the Giant. But
it is not. But in storyline, it was. And like I said earlier,
the
don't
WWF,
let it get in the way of good storyline.
And
because Hulk Hogan body slammed Andre the Giant multiple times, but the internet wasn't available back then, so
you had to have had the
really
Wrestling Observer. You needed to have the Wrestling Observer. You needed to be reading Dave Meltzer's, his little newsletter to know that Andre the Giant actually has lost and he's been body slammed. But it's funny you talk about this as being the big main event of WrestleMania 3. These two guys. This is actually just recently WWE for this WrestleMania put out their top 50 WrestleMania matches of all time, and Rock and Hogan actually, from WrestleMania 18, was the third greatest WrestleMania match of all time according to that list, but Hogan and Andre was the 8th greatest match in the history of WrestleMania.
If we're going just on pure technical work, like actual wrestling, I don't think it should be on that list. But in terms of how impactful that moment was, it's definitely, to me, it's top 5.
Absolutely, it's the body slam heard around the world.
Yep. And of course, Hulk Hogan went over. He beat Andre the Giant for the first time in WWF.
Yeah.
And then, now let's move on to the second feud. The Mega Powers exploding.
Oh, man. Him and Savage, man. They really exploded, by the way. I mean, Hogan and Savage, as far as we know, just were not good friends after a certain point. Yeah. Not at all.
So, it started off as a brotherhood, basically. Two of the larger-than-life athletes who finally joined forces, the Mega Powers. Who could stop them?
Jealousy and I guess in a way, Miss Elizabeth. I don't know.
Yeah. Every time, a good woman, a woman always gets in the way of,
oh my goodness,
a good man. It's always the downfall. Every time it's a downfall of men, just blame the woman. But Macho Man was getting jealous that Hulk Hogan was getting a little bit too close, a little bit too friendly for his liking with his wife, Miss Elizabeth. And that jealousy boiled over until one day, Savage snapped.
The Mega Powers exploded.
Yep. And this is a rare twist where Hulk Hogan was not actually the champion. Or not twist, but I guess a rare moment where Hulk Hogan was an actual champion going into the WrestleMania. It was Macho Man.
Yeah. Yeah, that was definitely an interesting difference in the whole scenario. Because, you're so used to Hogan kind of being the guy, being the champ, and he's going in there and
and he was the
He has
underdog.
to win it himself. Yeah, I mean, Savage was on a roll. Savage was big time.
He had it for about a year. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he won at WrestleMania 4. So yeah, he had it for basically about a year at that point.
Oh man.
So
talk about just the match itself having that title to it. The Mega Powers Explode. Like that's like an iconic sense of piece of verbiage to anybody that knows anything about professional wrestling, especially in the 80s.
That match itself is also probably better than WrestleMania 3.
Yeah.
Like Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. Just because Macho Man was such a great worker anyway.
Oh, yeah.
To where, like, he could carry Hulk Hogan. He was also a man who meticulously scripted his matches. Like, he faxed over Ricky Steamboat a script for WrestleMania 3.
And that would be probably part of why that match is one of the greatest matches in the history of WrestleMania as well.
Yep. Where was that one ranked on that list, by the way?
That was ranked number 4, just behind The Rock and Hogan.
Makes sense. Hulk Hogan was on there a lot, I bet.
He had quite a few trips around the top 10, without a doubt.
But Hulk
so
Hogan,
did Savage,
of course.
to be fair.
Yeah, well, your Savage also has a lot of WrestleMania matches. Ricky Steamboat. But, of course, Hulk Hogan won, and then he would go on to another feud that I think also defines the 80s, where he would go into WrestleMania 6 versus the Intercontinental Champion, the Ultimate Warrior.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was a big deal.
Were the biggest stars in the company. Macho Man was big, but Ultimate Warrior was, like, really, really big.
Yes. I mean, literally, by the way. But
if you weren't a Hulkamaniac, you were a Warrior fan. That was it. And,
yeah,
and that was when they faced off in the Royal Rumble together.
Those two ending up in that match, and to think that they really had like the idea, and the, I don't know if you want to call it the gumption to do a match for the Intercontinental Championship and the WWF Championship at the same time, and have Hulk Hogan lose. That's crazy to me.
Where this was the first ever champ match in WWE history. I'm pretty sure. At least for the world title.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure. It's definitely the first one to happen at WrestleMania, but I'm pretty sure it's never happened anywhere else.
Yeah.
And the storyline for this one, there wasn't really a big storyline for this. It was more of, it was just these were the guys. And I want it. These were the two best, most famous wrestlers on the planet. Let's put them together. And Hulk Hogan lost. They
were the draws of the World Wrestling Federation at the time. And yeah, I mean, it really is crazy that Hogan lost that match. And then, of course, it's not like Hogan could stay away for very long from all of that, from that spotlight, because
it's Hulk Hogan.
He most certainly got back to that title. And part of me will sit here, because I don't know for sure, but part of me really does sit here and think, I wonder if Hogan just didn't want to have the Intercontinental Championship. Like he's like, nah, I just don't want that. I'll just drop the WWF title. I'll get it back anyway.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason, too, because back then the Intercontinental Championship was just seen as the second banana. It was like, just like, not even the workhorse title, but just like, I guess a complimentary title.
If you weren't Hulk Hogan, you were getting it.
Yeah, basically that's what it was. So, like, it was like the second banana, and Hulk Hogan was never the second banana.
No. But he was yellow.
But other than that, like, those are really the only feuds I can think of in the 80s, unless you have any other ones that you can think of right now.
I mean, no, those are probably the ones
that really defines.
Those are the ones that are probably most worth talking about in our general conversation. But as we go into the 90s, I have a couple of, I mean, just far beyond even American wrestling, there's a handful. Like, my goodness, you know what? Though, let me not spoil it. You go ahead. You get it. You take.
So
us into
the first big feud that I think of when the '90s started is what's kicked off the Attitude Era, or not? Maybe not the Attitude Era, but what kicked off Stone Cold's career: Stone Cold versus Bret Hart. I think that feud was very.
I mean, look,
very.
There were the early part of the '90s. Not great. First half of the 90s in America, not great whatsoever.
It was one of the worst times to be a wrestling fan. It was so over the top. It was so campy. It was so just stupid.
Get to 96.
The characters itself just weren't fun. You had, like, garbage men and, like, electricians.
Well,
and,
they were gimmicks.
Construction workers. Those were gimmicks, but, like, the gimmicks were, like, it was just so bad. But actually, before we get to the Stone Cold and Bret Hart thing, I just want to say the two people... There was another feud that I just thought of right now. I think the Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon.
Oh yeah, Shawn Michaels and Razor was really good over the IC title twice. It was
a
really
dark, a
ladder
really
match.
shiny moment in a dark time for WWE. I think that ladder match single-handedly saved WrestleMania 10.
Yeah, I mean it was certainly a big part of why people remember that show. And
Also, let's talk about that feud for a little bit, where this was more of a who was the real Intercontinental Champion, because Shawn Michaels got into a little trouble. I forgot for what. I think he got caught on steroids.
it was definitely drug related, I'm sure.
But he never lost the belt, and Razor Ramon eventually won the belt.
Yeah.
And he was a good champ. And when Shawn Michaels came back, he wanted to prove who was the real Intercontinental Championship, and the only way you could in wrestling, in a ladder match, of course.
Yeah, you got to hang him above the ring to see who can get up there and grab it.
And not only was the match really good, the storyline was really good too. It was one of the few times that the storyline and the matches were both equally good.
Yeah, I mean it was a big deal when those two got at it, and that wasn't the only ladder match they even had, but
it was definitely the most iconic one.
But it was definitely the most iconic,
and also one that probably made it famous, to be honest. At
I
least
mean,
in America.
It's funny you bring that up because Shawn Michaels, man, he was part of a lot of like firsts and just things that made matches big time. That ladder match, he was in the first ever Hell in a Cell match, and honestly,
yep.
I mean, I love Triple H and Undertaker at WrestleMania 28 and Hell in a Cell. That's one of my favorite matches ever. But Undertaker and Shawn Michaels at Bad Blood 1997 and that Hell in a Cell, that is like an incredible match to go back and watch. I almost sometimes forget that that's when Kane debuted, simply because I only think about the match. The match is so good.
Yeah, it really is good. But back to the Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon, where the ladder match itself was excellent. Had the first time where someone jumped off a ladder like that.
Yeah, yep.
And Razor Ramon did win the title from Shawn Michaels that night, so he did prove in fact he was the real. Yeah, when he's holding up both the titles on the ladder. So he did in fact prove he was the real Intercontinental Champion. But now going back to Shawn Michaels again, he also had another feud, this time for the WWF title, with Bret the Hitman Hart.
Oh yes, classic, like to the Montreal Screwjob.
Before even that, they didn't like each other in real life either.
No.
So it was actual like bad blood.
A lot of people didn't like Shawn Michaels though, to be fair.
Well, yeah, he was kind of,
not a good guy.
A bad word I'm not going to say on this podcast.
No, we don't need to get canceled.
Take your pick. But, it led to the first ever Iron Man match that I can think of at WrestleMania. I'm pretty sure it's the only Iron Man match at WrestleMania.
Really don't like that match. That is a match that people either really like it or they really don't. There isn't a lot of
I thought the feud itself was really good up until that point.
Yeah,
and which sucks because why would the match be an hour and 5 minutes long?
Why would you why would you do this match the first time ever, an Iron Man match? It's going to be whoever can score the most pinfalls, and then you go the whole match and nobody gets a pinfall. Nobody gets. You have to go to overtime, and it's like, why? What a stupid way to do it.
It's not their fault. It was just, no one needs to go an hour and no one needs to do an hour of wrestling, and especially where no one gets a pin or submission.
I mean, I guess if you're going to do an hour of wrestling at the time, these are the two guys to do it. But
it's
you
just
useless.
Add some pinfalls at least.
The only memorable part of that match is Shawn Michaels' entrance.
It's the end.
Well, to me,
where
it's his entrance.
Where he came in for the zip line?
Yes, that's the only thing I ever remember from that.
The thing I remember is when he hit the sweet chin music in overtime, and then the boy he beat Bret the Hitman Hart, and the boy who dreamed come true.
Yeah, the boy who dreamed came true. That's right.
Yeah, that line is one of the most iconic in WrestleMania. They play on every promo package for WrestleMania.
The boyhood dream.
I think even this year, right?
Probably. But we talk about all this stuff, and I know we got to talk about Bret and Austin, but I do just want to bring up momentarily, because I know we only have 30 minutes, and we could talk about this for 30 hours. But in Japan, in All Japan Pro Wrestling, my God, Mitsuharu Misawa and Toshiaki Kawada and Akira Taue and Kenta Kobashi, the pillars of New Japan of All Japan Pro Wrestling, the feuds the eternal feud that the four of them had as partners, as enemies, it's incredible. There's barely a bad match between those guys, and then all the offshoot matches that they had. But 6-3-94 between Mitsuharu Misawa and Toshiaki Kawada is regarded as one of the greatest wrestling matches of all time, if not the greatest wrestling match of all time. And that storyline between Kawada just wanting to beat Misawa, to do it, it's honestly a marvel to sit down and watch throughout the 90s, those guys work with one another. And Jumbo Tsuruta and Mitsuharu Misawa at the beginning of the 90s, their mini feud of Misawa being the next guy up to Jumbo, who was like the veteran, kind of like a think Cody beating Cena kind of thing. You know, like that's like the idea behind that. But I just wanted to bring that up for a moment because I feel like you can't talk about professional wrestling in the 1990s and not bring up All Japan Pro Wrestling and those four pillars.
I think that's true, and I'm glad you brought it up. But now back to the original talking point with Bret and Austin. I think that feud really defined the Attitude Era and really kickstarted it.
Oh yeah, that was. I mean, dude, violence personified with those two, as it turns out. You know,
where Bret wanted respect and Stone Cold was giving him none. Where Bret was always getting booed by the American audiences, where Stone Cold was getting, I guess, was he getting cheered at the time?
I mean, people were starting to get behind him, for sure. You know? I
think this is the feud that made everyone really want to be Stone Cold. And the match itself is great. At WrestleMania 13. WrestleMania 13, not really a good WrestleMania itself, but that one match I'll always revisit. It actually just got inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and that match actually is the second greatest match in the history of WrestleMania, according to that list.
I believe it. And it's the first match ever inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, this is true. That's pretty great. Because that's what UFC does, right? They induct like fights. Yeah, so WWE obviously taking a thing out of their book.
But this fight or this match also made Stone Cold a babyface and turned Bret into the villain.
Yeah, it was one of the first, on American television, big time, like double turns.
Well, a double turn is basically, I'll explain for the people who don't know. A double turn is basically when one man enters a villain and he leaves as a hero, and the other man enters as a hero and he leaves as a villain. They basically swap roles. So that was the first ever, like Jake said, the first ever double turn on American television, at least. And it's still probably the best done one, to be honest. In my opinion.
It's hard to argue that. It's very iconic. Very, very iconic. I mean, if anything, within the match of Rock and Hogan at WrestleMania, that also was a double turn that didn't stick because The Rock didn't particularly stay a bad guy, but Hogan definitely became a good guy coming out of it. But that Rock-Hogan match, the other kind of moment where something like that happened.
But now with another feud for Stone Cold Steve Austin, you'll be hearing him a lot on this list.
Yeah.
And same thing with Shawn Michaels. Stone Cold and Vince McMahon.
I mean, another thing that you could sit there and say, like, that helped save wrestling.
That is what saved WWE, and there is no denying that. Because the one thing every person on this planet hates is their boss.
That's very true.
Seeing this guy assault your boss, or assaulting his boss,
it's gonna make
it brought in people's darkest desires. Now with a storyline that didn't age so well today, when he invaded the arena with a gun. That was then he put Bang. It came out with the Bang. Yeah. That's certainly certainly not something you'd see now. That's for sure. Oh no.
But it worked back then. You know what?
Back then in the 90s, it wasn't a sensitive time with gun violence back then. Now it is.
I mean, they had Brian Pillman pull out a gun live on Raw and threaten to kill Stone Cold as he came into his home.
Classic moment.
Pillman's got a gun.
Good old family-friendly wrestling.
Oh, I love professional wrestling for that.
But believe it or not, you can say what you want about Vince McMahon as a person, but as a businessman, he was never not willing to do what it took for his business to succeed.
And
he
his
was
character
always willing to be in the line of fire.
His character was as good as it was because it was just him. It
turned up to like 15.
Yeah, it was just because Vince McMahon is a horrible human being. His character was a horrible human being, and it worked great, and it helped get Austin over even more in opposing him.
Oh, we can actually go longer, by the way, Jake, because I don't know if everyone else reached the 30-minute. So we can probably go a little bit longer.
You can edit down what you need to. I've done that. So.
Oh no. But that match with him, with the match with Vince and Stone Cold at the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
Oh, that led to the debut.
It's not a particularly good match, but it is a fun match.
That led to the debut of the Giant.
Of the Big Show.
otherwise known as Big Show. Paul White debuted there.
But, one of the most also iconic moments in wrestling that I think of is when Stone Cold bounced Vince's head off the cage and Vince went flying like 15 feet back and through the announce table.
That's just crazy stuff, man.
Like, he actually injured himself, too. I'm pretty sure he, broke... I heard he broke his shoulder blade or something like that. And he still went back in there to wrestle.
Imagine being him. How could you not severely injure yourself,
Yeah, it's Vince.
But yeah, now... and by the way, don't forget, when Vince McMahon eliminated Stone Cold Steve Austin from the Royal Rumble in 1998.
Yeah, that actually what led to that match. Yeah. I should have mentioned that.
That's that whole deal was crazy.
So this feud is something it's a weird feud because there technically was no winner because they never really resolved their issues. At least in storyline, it was always Austin versus Vince and everything. Except when he joined him.
2001 at WrestleMania 17, but we're not
where
in 2000.
He joined him.
You talk about Austin and Vince, but Austin and The Rock.
I think I was just about to get to that one. Another feud that is one of the most saved wrestling, to be honest. It's another feud that saved wrestling.
One of the greatest trilogies in WrestleMania history.
It's also the feud, to me, that kick-started The Rock as a mainstay player.
Yeah, I mean, you can make that argument.
It was his first ever WrestleMania main event.
And that match is pretty good at WrestleMania 15. People always talk about 17, but that match at 15 is pretty good. And their rematch at Backlash that year is even better.
Yeah. People forget about the Backlash because, it isn't a big 4 pay-per-view.
Yeah.
But that feud has more... The moment I think of that feud is what we were just talking about earlier, when Austin, at WrestleMania 17, wanted to do anything to beat The Rock. He would do anything to win the title back. And so he sold his soul to Vince McMahon and joined him.
He shook hands with the devil.
Yep. So, Stone Cold beat The Rock at WrestleMania 15. He beat him at WrestleMania 17. The Rock only beat him once at WrestleMania 21.
What, when The Rock beat Hogan? That was at... not Hogan,
no.
I'm sorry. The Rock beats Austin? That was at WrestleMania 19.
Excuse me. WrestleMania 19. That was when Stone Cold was on his way out of the company.
Yeah, that would be Stone Cold's final match at WrestleMania. Well, actually, final match, period, until WrestleMania 38, when he wrestled Kevin Owens.
Yeah, where he came back for one last surprise. But that wasn't really a match. That was more just like, have fun, Austin.
Go do what you do best. Go brawl.
But Stone Cold was here a lot. He also had a tiny feud with Triple H, but it wasn't as iconic as, The Rock and Vince.
Well, and it's funny, we talk about that too, and we bring up Triple H, and suddenly it's like, well, you could talk about Triple H and Mick Foley, you could talk about Triple H and The Rock, you could talk about Triple H and The Undertaker. There's, that's the great thing about the 90s here. We talk, and just bringing it around to storylines, matches, whatever. I talked about the 90s when it came to All Japan with the pillars. Well, you have your Austin, you have your Rock, you have your Kane, Undertaker, you have Mick Foley,
so
Triple
much
H,
great wrestlers in the 90s
these guys,
for WWE.
and they all hated each other, and that's what honestly, I mean, it's crazy to say, I guess, but that's what makes professional wrestling so great. That's when it's at its peak, when everybody hates each other.
Take that lesson in life, guys.
Yeah, hate everybody.
Hate your coworkers. It will be a way better workplace.
You'll tell great stories in the workplace if you just hate your cubicle neighbor. That's
right. But another feud that Reed also, for me, I think of in the 90s and early or late or early 2010s as well, is Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker.
Oh yeah.
We mentioned that a little bit earlier, but now let's tell the full story.
Well, Shawn and Undertaker, as we said before, Bad Blood 1997.
Yep.
Such a match. But then, get a whole lot between them for a long time. Because Shawn Michaels retires. The Undertaker's doing his thing for a long time. And then it's really not until WrestleMania 25 that the two of them are working each other again.
And, of course, that WrestleMania 25 match is one of the greatest matches of all time.
Absolutely.
Now, we keep mentioning this WrestleMania list. Where did this rank on the list? I'm assuming it's at least
Undertaker
in the top
and Shawn
3.
at 25?
Yeah.
It is the greatest match in the history of WrestleMania according to that
Well,
list.
there you have it. It is the greatest match in WrestleMania history.
And let me double check these notes here. Let me look. Where is it on here? Is the other one on here?
Of course, we have the rematch.
Shawn Michaels and Undertaker at 26 is the 26th greatest match in WrestleMania history, which I think is crazy. I think it's also top 10, but it is what it is.
They were bugging with that one. That's a no on the list right there. That is definitely one of top. That's top 5 to me, to be honest. It's so
good.
So this is also one of the few times we mentioned on this list where there was no title on the line for WrestleMania 25 and 26.
No.
It was Undertaker's undefeated streak versus Shawn Michaels' career.
Yep. At 26, it was Shawn was. I remember it like it was yesterday. Shawn was not able to beat Undertaker at 25. He lost his mind. He went that whole year. I remember he ended up being like JBL's slave, and then. At the Elimination Chamber in 2010, Shawn Michaels, Undertaker's defending his title. Shawn Michaels breaks out of the bottom of the chamber, gets up, super kicks Undertaker in the face. I think Chris Jericho ends up winning the world title.
Yes.
Who
was also one of Shawn Michaels' greatest enemies too.
Oh, absolutely. Oh man, their ladder match was No Mercy 2008. Oh my God, that's one of my favorite ladder matches of all time. Those two had a great WrestleMania match as well.
He was so willing. He really wanted to beat The Undertaker, that he was willing to give the title, or cost Undertaker his title, and give it to one of his greatest enemies in wrestling.
All to make sure that, hey, Undertaker, do I have your attention now?
Yep, and unfortunately, Shawn would regret that decision, because at WrestleMania 26, Undertaker he was 18-0 right there, right?
Yeah, let's see. 19 was 27, 28, 29. He went 21. Yeah. Yep.
What number did I say?
He went 18 because 19 was at 27, 20 was at 28, and then 21 was against Punk at 29.
So he went 18-0 against Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels put up a good fight, but
and then he had to retire.
He retired, and he stayed retired for a long time.
Yeah, for 8 years until he wrestled The Undertaker again. If you remember in Saudi Arabia, Shawn Michaels and Triple H versus Kane and The Undertaker in a terrible match that went because everyone was a little old and gassed, and they went for 28 minutes in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, they were all it was all people in their mid-50s trying to wrestle. It wasn't good. It was embarrassing.
Well, all right, let's not be rude to Triple H. He wasn't 50 yet, but I'm pretty sure everybody else
49.
was. Yeah.
But is there anything else you want to say before we wrap it up real quick?
No, not really. Aside from the fact that I'm really happy that this semester you went out there and talked about wrestling as much as you have. I think that's really awesome. And having me involved too was great. I could talk about this stuff forever. And man, professional wrestling. If it's something that you just say, it's fake and who cares, it's garbage, whatever. Give it a watch. Watch some of the most iconic matches and promos, and just suspend disbelief for a second. Go to your local indie show, something like a Pro Wrestling Magic in Ridgefield Park. Go to an indie show and just kind of experience it and be there. And it's so easy to get caught up in what wrestling is.
Yeah, wise words, Jake. Thank you. I would like to thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you being here. I could not do this alone. We talked for almost an hour. I'm going to have to cut this down a lot. And what is your guys' favorite matches? If there's any professional wrestling fans out there listening to this, what is your favorite match and what is your favorite storyline? I want to thank you all for listening to this. It's been really fun to record these last few episodes. Truly, I thank you for listening, and I hope to see you all next time. Thanks, guys. See you.
See ya.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Can you see anything different as a pill?
No.
You don't know?
Fentanyl is being mixed into everything now. There's only one thing that will save somebody's life. That is naloxone nasal spray.
Fentanyl, it's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
Why would drug dealers put a lethal dose of fentanyl in drugs if they know it's so harmful?
Really just all about the money.
I just didn't realize that one pill could change your whole life.
More kitchen now.
You are listening to Bergen Bulldog Radio, the podcast show, here on Files Channel 26. And now back to the show.
Hey Glow Girls, welcome back to another episode of Giggles and Glow Girls. I'm your host Kima, and today we're diving into a topic that is close to my heart and honestly needed on some mornings when the to-do list is like climbing a mountain, or even better, when the to-do list is like trying to wipe a baby's nose. Not easy. So yes, we are going to be talking about self-compassion, what it is, why it matters, and best of all, how to practice it. Okay, so let's start off with a mini confession. Yes, I'm giving you guys a mini confession today. Last week, I literally found myself sitting and looking at myself in my bathroom mirror. Yes, looking at myself in the bathroom mirror, staring at myself, exhausted, with the same messy bun, my eyebrows not done, or my nails. And if you know me, that is something major because I always come dressed to impress or looking swell. Okay? And this person that I was looking at did not remind me of me. I've been out of my A game lately, and I'm staring at myself thinking, why can't I get it together? I was exhausted from juggling business, school pickups, homework, dinner, practice, and my own schoolwork, and also juggling time to spend with my family. My inner critic, and yes, we all have that inner critic within us, wasn't helping me. It was shouting, "You're doing it all wrong. You're doing it all wrong, silly. Get it together, stupid." Sound familiar? If you've ever been there, you're not alone. And that's exactly why today's episode is for you. Okay, so I want to start with what is self-compassion? But before we start, Glow Girls, I've got a little homework for you. And yes, I want you to feel involved in this episode because this journey is personal and powerful. So before we go any further, I want you to pause this podcast and take a moment to reflect. When you hear the words self-compassion, what comes to mind? What does it look like? What does it feel like for you? So grab your journal, open your notes app, or just sit quietly and meditate on it for a few minutes. Write down whatever comes to mind. No judgment at all, just honesty. And if you feel called to share, we'd love to hear your thoughts in our Facebook group. Just reference this episode so we can all connect and support each other through our reflection. Go ahead, pause now, reflect, and then come back and you're ready. We'll be right here waiting to glow up together. Self-compassion sounds fancy, but it's really about treating yourself the way you'd treat a good friend, especially when things go sideways. Psychologist Christine Neff breaks it down into 3 parts. 1, self-kindness instead of judgment. 2, common humanity instead of isolation. Remember, we all stumble sometimes. 3, mindfulness instead of over-identifying with every negative thought. So rather than berating yourself for that missed workout or that horrible dinner, self-compassion invites you to pause and say, hey, this is a lot, but I'm doing my best. And that's what counts. So let's talk about why self-compassion matters. Because I know you might be thinking, will this really change anything? And glow alert, yes, it will. Research shows self-compassion lowers stress hormones like cortisol. It boosts resilience as well, so you bounce back faster when life gets hard. Or when your 4 and 5-year-old decides the living room couch is a trampoline. Side note, my cloud couch ain't cheap, so of course I'm yelling at my kids when they do that. And I give myself self-compassion when I yell at my kids because, sorry, soft mom life ain't 24/7. Anyways, back to topic. Studies link self-compassion to greater happiness, improved relationship, and even stronger immune systems. Being kind to yourself actually makes you more productive. When you stop punishing yourself for imperfection, you're less likely to procrastinate out of fear and more likely to tackle your tasks with a cool, calm mindset. It is okay to make mistakes. You're not a robot. Everything do not have to be correct or in order. Again, it is okay to make mistakes. Okay, Glow Girls, guess what time it is? It's story time. I know I usually do this in the beginning of my podcast, but today we kind of like switched it up and, switching things up is fun. So we're going to get into a little story time about self-compassion and how I used it in my own life because I love to resonate, or I want you guys to resonate with me. And I'm human like you guys. I have stories too on top of stories, okay? And this story is going to include my dweeb phase because of course I made some mistakes. So this is a no judge zone. If you're going to judge, please exit my podcast. And if you're not going to judge because you're the home girl, my glow girl, then pull up a chair and come listen to this story time. So a few years ago, I was that girl who always fell for the wrong guys. Yep, that was me. I fell for the classic players, the flirty fun in the moment, but completely emotionally unavailable. If you know, you know, those bastards, okay? I'd leave each date feeling deflated, blaming myself for not seeing it coming. I think, why do I keep choosing these a-holes? I'm so dumb. And then I'll throw myself a little pity party with some ice cream in a horror movie. Okay. And one evening on my couch in my Victoria's Secret hoodie, that's when Victoria's Secret was the thing back then. I don't know about now. But anyways, back to topic. YouTube suggested a video on manifestation. Yes, manifestation. The headline read, "To receive love, you must become love." And I'm going to repeat that. To receive love, you must become love. It hit me like a lightning bolt, okay? I realized I was treating myself like a side character in my own love story. Calling myself silly, not enough. No wonder my love life mirrored that low self-esteem. So I made a pact with myself. Yes, I made a pact with myself from that YouTube video. 1 daily self-compassion mantras. Every morning, I stood in front of a mirror and I said, I am worthy. I deserve kindness, and I give and I receive love. And 2, heartfelt journaling. Okay, I wrote down 3 things I loved about myself. My beauty, my giggles, and my go-getting spirit. Last and not least, my ditziness. Okay? And 3, the new dating rule. No more chasing materialistic fun. Okay? I was dating the guys that had like the jewelry, the cars. Yeah, those guys are a waste of time. Don't judge the book by its cover, okay? Don't. So that was 3 things that I made a pact on. I'd only say yes to a date if someone showed quiet kindness and genuine curiosity about me. And then guess what happened within weeks? I stopped obsessing over not being her and not attracting the right men. And I opened myself up to a real grounded connection. That's when he walked in. Who's he? My man, my man, my man. So yes, he was perfect. Okay. He's older than me. He was thoughtful. He was generous, and he helped me become who I am today. Okay. And then 6 months later, he surprised me with a proposal that had me happy and joyful. And now we're a family with 3 little ones with businesses. And you see what happened when you are self-compassionate with yourself and you give yourself time and you talk to yourself nicely. We make mistakes, and I made mistakes, and it's okay to make mistakes. So that was my little story time, and I enjoyed telling it. So hopefully you guys can resonate with me. You can be self-compassionate with yourself in different ways. That was just in my loving way with my love life. But let's get back into topic. Before we get back into topic, I want to stop right here, and we're going to switch it up again with something new. Okay, we have to liven this podcast. We're going to do a self-compassion break. It's kind of like a meditation in a way. Okay, let's do it together. So, all right, let's take a quick practice together. If you can sit up straight, feet flat on the floor, and hands resting gently in your lap. You can close your eyes or you can keep it open. It's all up to you. Take a deep breath in and out. Say silently to yourself, this is a moment of suffering, of hardship. I feel behind. Admit what you are going through. And then offer yourself kindness. Place one hand on your heart. Breathe in. Breathe out. And whisper to yourself, may I be kind to myself in this moment. Tell yourself positive things. It is okay. I will catch up. I am kind to myself. I love myself. And just connect with yourself. Remind yourself other people feel this way too. And I am not alone. Take another breath. Soften your body. Soften your jaw. Soften your shoulders. Breathe in. Breathe out. And give yourself a hug. And you just gave yourself a self-compassion break. Feel free to repeat at any time. Because Glow Girls, we are going to glow with self-compassion. So next topic is 3 everyday self-compassion rituals. Some we already spoke about from my story time, but I'm going to repeat it so it can be drilled into your minds. Okay? So let's get into some rituals. Some of these practices into your busy lives or your busy mom lives. And 1, morning mirror mantra, just like my story time. Every morning when you're about to brush your teeth, look yourself in the eyes and say, I'll take care of you today. Okay? I'll take care of you today. That's what you're going to tell yourself. Because that's what we're going to start doing, Glow Girls. We're going to start taking care of ourselves. Because how can you help others when you can't help yourself? And yes, you might look a little silly, but that's part of the glow. Yes, girl. And let's get into 2. Midday check-in alarm. Set an alarm at 12 p.m. or your lunch break, 1 o'clock, 1:30, whatever time is your lunch break. And just do a gentle alarm on your phone and do a little breathing meditation, just like what we did together. Checking in on yourself. And 3, you know what time it is, the bedtime reflection. Don't just, go into your blankets and just knock off. No, have a bedtime reflection. I love that. A bedtime reflection. Before you drift off, think of 3 moments you handled with grace. Okay, 3 moments that you handled with grace today. I didn't curse that man out and stick my middle finger out the window because he crossed me over. I didn't smack the person in the drive-thru for being rude to me. Okay. Just up. I didn't yell at my husband because he forgot to take out the garbage and the diapers are smelling. Think of 3 things that you did that gave self-compassion or being kind to someone else. Okay? Okay, Glow Girls, let's get into some questions from our listeners, our Glow Girls. And this question is from Jessica from DC. Shout out to Jessica from DC. And Jessica's question is, how can I have self-compassion when I'm exhausted? That is a great question. And if there's any listeners that is feeling the same exact way, let's answer that question. So, I hear you. And honestly, that's when self-compassion matters the most. When you're exhausted, it doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human. Self-compassion in those moments isn't about adding more to your plate. It's about softening how you speak to yourself. Okay? So here are a few gentle ways to practice self-compassion when you're running on empty. So 1, Jessica, I want you to acknowledge your exhaustion without guilt. And that goes for any listeners that is feeling just like how Jessica is feeling. Acknowledge your exhaustion without guilt. Try saying, I'm tired and that's okay. I've been doing a lot. And as a mom, I used to feel that way as well. And hey, till this day, I still feel that way sometimes. I'm tired and that's okay. I've been doing a lot. 2, lower the bar to something doable. Self-compassion doesn't have to be bubble baths, journals. It can be choosing rest over another task. Listen, if I am tired, I'm going to go to bed. So Jessica, if you need to rest, try to get some rest. Put the other thing aside and get some rest. Self-care can be rest. Self-compassion is giving yourself rest. Okay? Order takeout. Instead of cooking, relax. Sit down on your couch. Order takeout. If your man's hungry, he has 2 hands. God bless him with 2 hands. If not, he can order takeout. Okay? If the kids is hungry, order takeout. And 2, just say no. Say no to your friends who want you to go out. Say no to your kids. It's time to go to bed. Say no to your husband. I'm going to roll over because I'm tired. Okay? And if you know, you know. So tell them no. Okay? And take care of yourself. It's okay. And 3, breathe and give yourself permission. Okay? 1 slow, deep breath followed by a kind thought. I'm allowed to rest. I don't have to earn it. You do not have to earn rest. You give yourself rest. You are allowed rest. Okay? And 4, remember, you're worth it. Okay? You are worth self-compassion. Being tired does not mean you're weak. It's just a signal from your body to rest. And that's why I keep repeating that, because that is a 4-letter word that is very important. And another thing, Jessica, is that self-compassion isn't a performance. It's a mindset. So just be aware of yourself, and the rest of my Glow Girls, be aware of how your body is feeling. Okay? Be aware. And I'm going to, since we have some time today, get another question, and let's see what we have. Okay, so our next question is from Annie, New York. Shout out to New York. And her question is, what would I say to myself if I was being judged harshly by someone else? That's such a powerful reflection question, Annie. And yeah, that's a really powerful question. If I was being judged harshly by someone else, I would remind myself that their opinion doesn't define my worth. Yeah, their opinion does not define you, Annie. I'd say you are doing your best, and your value isn't up for debate. Your value isn't up for debate. And I'm sorry, when I repeat myself, I'm definitely feeling what I'm saying. So that's why I'm repeating it, so it can be drilled into my Glow Girl's mind. So if I'm saying it 2 times, I'm sorry, it's just a habit. And I'd also ask myself, Annie, if I was you, is this judgment really about me? Or is it a reflection of something they're dealing with? Because some people reflect how they are feeling about themselves onto others. Like that saying, hurt people hurt people. Okay? So that's what I would ask. Is this person upset within themselves that they're taking it out on me, or bringing negativity onto me about myself? Then I'd breathe, ground myself, and then say something kind. Like, you don't need to be perfect to be worthy. You are enough exactly as you are. Okay? So, Annie, don't listen to them. Do not listen to anyone that is trying to put you down or say negative things about you. Okay? And for any other Glow Girl that can also relate to Annie, that question was really good, Annie. And both of your questions were great. I definitely love my Glow Girls questions. So if you want to leave a question, just go to the Facebook group, leave a nice question, and my assistant will pick out a question that is good, and we'll talk about it on the podcast. Okay? So I want to take this time to recommend a book that I am reading, and it's actually pretty good. And it's from Mel Robbins. If you know Mel Robbins, you know that she is really good. Now, this book was kind of controversial because people didn't agree and some people did, but I actually liked it, so I want to recommend it to my Glow Girls, which I'm going to start doing. Maybe I'll start a little book club, but I'm going to start recommending books that I am reading that is helping with my glow up or my glow. Okay? So this book also has something to do with self-compassion. It's called The Let Them Vary book, and it's by Mel Robbins. It's The let them theory is about releasing the need to control how others perceive, treat, or respond to us. It's a powerful act of emotional self-protection. So protecting yourself, basically. But even more than that, it's an act of self-compassion. And that's what we're talking about today. So that's why I want to recommend that book. Okay? It's like, let them judge. You're not here to prove your worth. And you're not here to prove you're enough. Let them walk away. If someone leaves, it's not always a loss. It might be space being cleared for something healthier. And let them stop you. What matters more is you believing in you. So again, too often we burn ourselves out trying to earn approval or keep relationships that aren't serving us. But self-compassion asks, what if I stop chasing love and start giving it to myself instead? Letting them allows you to stop overworking emotional for people who aren't meeting you where you are. And Mel Robbins basically talked about this better than I can. So definitely go to Mel Robbins' podcast or definitely grab this book and read it because it's really great. And I'm getting into it. And as I learn, I want to teach my Glow Girls as well. So that's another way for me to learn is just reading books, going on YouTube, watching other podcasts, and then getting the feedback, putting it all in one, and then giving it back to my girls, my Glow Girls. So when you stop trying to fix, convince, or please others, and instead you say, I choose peace, that's compassion, that's boundaries, and that is growth. Okay, so that's the let them theory, and I love it. So let them. They want to walk out, let them. He want to be a cornball, let them. Okay, they don't want to listen, let them. Okay, I'm not abandoning me anymore. So let them might sound cold or sound like, okay, you're going to just let your kids walk out in the middle of the street. That's what some people that were being controversial were saying, but that's not what she was basically saying. You know, it's a really good book, so I recommend it to my Glow Girls. So if you get it, you know, go back to the Facebook group and tell us how you feel about it. Tell me if you like it. Tell me if you want me to recommend some type of other books, and let's get our Facebook group chat live. All right, Glow Girls, as we wrap up today's episode, I want you to remember this. Compassion isn't just something we give to others. It's something we deserve to give to ourselves, too. Whether you're healing, growing, or simply surviving today, speak to yourself with softness and kindness. Be gentle with your heart. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are beautifully becoming. So go out there, lead with love, and let compassion be the light that guides you, especially with them. Compassion isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. It's the foundation that keeps us strong enough to care for our families, pursue our goals, and still find time for joy. Because again, you cannot help others if you cannot help yourselves. Just like when you take a flight, they always tell you, before you help someone with their mask, help yourself with your mask. Okay? So if you tried the self-compassion break today with me, let me know how it felt. Tag us on Instagram at Giggles and Glow, or leave a comment on our Facebook group. Next week, we're exploring another fun topic. You definitely won't want to miss it, especially if you're forgetting what it feels like to just giggle for no reason. Okay? Thank you for sharing these moments with me. Be gentle with yourself. Celebrate your wins, big or small, and keep glowing. Until next time, keep glowing and growing. Ciao, Glow Girls.
The podcast show here on Bergen Bulldog Radio was engineered and edited by Jordan Burrell. Our Bulldog mascot is Jameson. If you missed any portion, this program will be repeated at various times here on FiOS Channel 26 through Wednesday, April 30th. Part 2 in our final program will air beginning Thursday, May 1st. The executive producer of Bergen Bulldog Radio is Professor Robert Williams. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Bergen Bulldog Radio.